Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, we have a mailbag episode today. Before we get to that, I want to talk real quickly about Chat BCC to our listeners. What you can do is come talk ball with us at chatbcc at foulterritory.chat. We're hanging with fans, answering questions, hosting trivia, and running giveaways. Uh, it's free to join. Go to foulterritory.chat and come hang. I think we have a giveaway going right now, actually. That is Think you know ball? Prove it to in our trivia game for a shot at winning an authentic MLB jersey of your choice worth up to $400. Here's how to enter. Sign up at foulterritory.chat, play trivia, crush it, and you might win. We're picking one winner from the top 10 scorers at random. Deadline is July 20th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Again, you can join that on foulterritory.chat. We got a little thing up here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube to scan, and you can join in on the fun and get that giveaway. Uh, it's a $400 MLB authentic jersey. Fun stuff. All right, guys. Let's get to some questions. Mailbag, as always, you guys are great. You guys sending in a ton of questions. The Cubs are playing good baseball. We're about to start the second half. A lot of questions. A lot of people are interested in what's going on. Let's start with we're going to start with trade talk right away, Patrick. If the Cubs wanted to, so this is a Diamondbacks question. That's Merrill. If the Cubs wanted to acquire Merrill Kelly and Eugenio Suarez, wouldn't it be more likely or a jump to the front of the line if they took back Jordan Montgomery? Jordan Montgomery out for the season with Tommy John. There is, there are people in the Cubs organization that like Jordan Montgomery. He is, you know what? His deal was only 2 years,
Yeah,
47
he's done after this
million.
year.
So he is done after this year. When I originally read this, I thought, I don't know. I think there's a talk to be had there's a discussion to be had, Patrick, about how willing are the Cubs to take big money after 26. The books are clear, so that's one reason why it could be okay. But we've also talked a lot about the CBA is expiring. They don't know what the money situation will be as far as are they going to get a cap? I don't know. These are discussions that we're going to have over the next year plus. I don't know if that's going to happen, but how money is spent and what restrictions are placed on spending, um, salary cap, salary floor, whatever it may be, more penalties if you go over a soft cap, whatever they may do, that could change the way teams want to spend. So, do they want to put big money on the books, especially if it's for someone that isn't playing? Jordan Montgomery, uh, free agent at the end of the year. I think it's actually like it is interesting, but I just I don't know if the Cubs that would be so that's about 20 something, 23.75 divided by, 6 times 2, whatever that is. The math
I
there.
was told there
That
was
would be
no math in this show. That's
it'd
why
be
I
about 8
signed up.
million, I
I
think.
think I think Greg is asking the right question about the wrong player, if that makes sense. That
Okay.
not taking on a guy who's about to become a free agent and is seriously hurt. But when the Cubs, we were kind of working on that payroll story vis-a-vis their big market revenues heading into this season. That was kind of one organizational talking point of, hey, you never know what's going to happen at the trade deadline. Like there could be, stuff happening then. Teams may want to, unload a bad contract if we want to get a good player. And so I don't know how all that's going to shake out. I think it's a really fine line between what we had talked about earlier of trying to do some of your free agent shopping now versus blowing your budget for next year this summer. So I do think bad contracts, taking on money to reduce the prospect costs. I think all of those are in play. I just don't really think Jordan Montgomery is like the example to use here, but certainly Kelly and Suarez are like the players that I think if you were like circling a team, a deal, two biggest needs, I think those two names make a ton of sense.
Yeah, I don't know what the value, like, you could just take it, yeah, like, give the Diamondbacks $8 million, if that were the
Yeah,
thing. I'm
it's
not
like
sure
dealing with that. Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
Montgomery makes much sense. Maybe there's some reason that it could make sense, but I'm not I think you could just give money if that's the
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that's the issue, because he's not playing. Even if he were beyond this season, it would make more sense as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah.
giving a bad contract. But that's why that may be difficult. But those are the right players. Like, those are two players I think the Cubs have circled. If they can do one stop shopping and get a starting pitcher and a third baseman, they would love that. And Suarez is a difference maker right now. The way he's playing, he'd change the dynamic of this team. It would be amazing to see him in this lineup. I think such a deep lineup, such a talented lineup, and then you add that to maybe the one weak spot. Yeah, it would be game changing. That would be a huge addition. Uh, Injury question, Patrick. What is Javier Assad's injury status? If fully healthy, he would be a nice second half addition to the pitching staff. I believe you heard some stuff while on the road last week.
Great. Yeah. Good question, John. Our understanding is that he's still looking at an August return. I believe throwing live batting practice was the last step that he had done. Obviously, it's the All Star break, so we're not getting injury updates all the time. But the idea heading into the break was that he's probably a little bit ahead of Jamison Tyone, but that both pitchers would be expected to be available at some point in August. I think it's also important to remember with Assad, you want to build him up as a starter. You would not want to shortchange that possibility. He's obviously been an effective swingman throughout his career. So I think the Cubs haven't gone too far down this road because he still has, a couple more steps to go. And this has been an injury that traces back to maybe like the day before pitchers and catchers reported to
Yeah.
spring training, like a really long time here. So everything is written very much in pencil. But he does have, a minor league option available this year. So you could theoretically just kind of build him up and stash him at Iowa and keep him on a normal schedule and make sure his pitch count and innings workloads are where you want it to be. I also think some of this is dependent, or actually, I know this will be dependent on what they do at the trade deadline. So
Yes.
we think they're going to look for a legit starter, maybe a depth starter swingman, and a late inning reliever. On top of getting, a third baseman bench help, like there's a lot of moving pieces here, and so I think on August 1st they can look up and see where Assad is at, see where Tyone is at, and see where it makes the most sense to deploy Assad uh, for the stretch run.
Yeah, and Jed's been pretty clear about this. Once August 1st hits, there's just not many moves to be made. Like,
Mhm.
there are those, teams may release guys or something like that, but there's those waiver deals don't happen. Those were big back in, when what was that? Was that pre-COVID or even before that?
Mhm.
However long it's been gone long enough that it's not a thing. It doesn't it they used to add depth all the time in August. It was we've talked about this a lot. They love depth. It's a way to reinforce a team. Make sure that you're not, if an injury strikes, you're safe at least for a little while. Uh, they don't have that, so that means they're going to add that now over the next couple of weeks. Adding back Assad and Tyone just creates more depth. It creates a little more of a safety net. Whoever gets moved into what spot, Assad does have options remaining. He's got two options remaining. So, this year and next, if they want to option him, they can. So that's I think that matters. And what you're talking about, they want to keep him stretched out. So if they need to option him, if he doesn't have a spot right away, that's okay. They can option him and he's there, and that's important. You need more guys, especially if someone is used as trade bait like Jordan Wicks. What if Jordan Wicks is moved? Then you're losing depth in a sense, right?
Mm,
Likely you're getting a
yeah.
starter if you're moving Jordan Wicks, but I'm just saying you're there's depth being moved out of the out as well. So we'll see what happens, but I do think he's a interesting. Don't forget about Javier Assad. I guess is what I would say there. Patrick, let's take a quick break and then we'll get back to more questions from the fans.
Hey, have you heard of Bilt? No? Do you pay rent? Yes? Okay, good. Let's talk. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. When you pay rent through Bilt, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or where your landlord is. Your rent now works for you, and you gain access to exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. Bilt's neighborhood benefits are things like extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and much more. Unique experiences that only Bilt members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Bilt points can be converted to your favorite miles and hotel points around the world, meaning your rent can literally take you places. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, what are you waiting for? Start paying rent through Bilt and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbilt.com/foul. That's joinbilt.com/FOUL. Make sure to use our URL so that they know we sent you.
All right, Patrick. The Cubs are well above 500. What's their record right now? It is 57-39. Okay, and this question I think directly links to their record. This is their record is going to determine the answer to this question. Has Jed done enough this year to warrant an extension? Assuming the second half goes well. If we're assuming the second half goes well, I, that's an easy answer. Is this something that would only take place in the offseason? This is from the Lizard King. I don't think that's actually Jim Morrison. Uh,
Big Cubs fan, Jim Morrison.
so I think that it's an easy answer. I think the last time we addressed this, they were in the midst of that very tiny skid, and it was like, okay, are they going to go into like a big hole here? Are they about to hit the skids and suddenly be only 5 games above 500 or something like that? And then you're asking questions. Yeah, I almost feel like, okay, the draft is done. We're approaching the deadline. I think I wouldn't be shocked if it happens before the season. If we hear something or if something does get done before the season, we don't hear about it until maybe after they're eliminated or the season ends, whatever, whenever that may be. Uh, I just feel like the answer is easy. We came into the season saying his job is on the line. Playoffs or bust. They look like they're headed for the playoffs. Yes, if the second and assuming the question says assuming the second half goes well, I think it's a layup. I don't even know what the discussion is unless and this is not something we've ever heard. He has kids, he has family, he has roots here. Now, like unless Jed doesn't want to be here, which is we've gotten zero indication that that's the case. He's put together a lot of this front office. He's built this team. Uh, this is his organization, baseball operations, set up, and this is his team right now. So he hired the manager. He put all these players on the team. What the one player from? I mean, there's a few players for I guess from Theo era, but still, he was part of all of this. This is his. This is his fingerprints are all over this organization. I just don't see how unless there's something that we don't know that we're missing here that we haven't heard. I expect him to be back next year.
The only thing I would caution is like making the playoffs matters. Like if the Cubs win one more game against the Diamondbacks or Marlins in 23 to make the playoffs, like does David Ross get
Yeah.
fired? We'll never know. The Cubs never really had to answer that question or really think about it in those terms, but that certainly matters. Otherwise, I think all of the indicators are pointing towards Jed Hoyer doing what the Ricketts family wants, and that is building a pipeline of young talent, being nimble in the marketplace, using all these different ways to acquire players, uh, not spending at the absolute top of the free agent market. But what I'm talking about is, first round picks who become major league currency in one form or another, being more transactional, not just kind of like buying or selling at the deadline, but making some of these big offseason deals for a guy like Kyle Tucker. You have the pitching infrastructure that, you know, we'll see how it holds up in the second half. But I think ownership has been largely pleased by that ability to sort of like, you know, rebuild the bullpens on the fly, make smart investments in free agent starters, build that presence up in Japan, which is something that Jed asked ownership for kind of the resources to do. And I think the historical reference to what the Lizard King is talking about is Theo Epstein's 5-year contract extension was announced September 28th, 2016. And that was framed as, look, we don't want this to be a distraction. Theo's done a great job. We want to keep his team in place. So, like, I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happens, barring that sort of collapse.
Yeah, yeah. I think that summed up well. And I think that's a good point of reference. The Theo extension. I didn't even realize that was during the 2016 season. I think I'd forgotten that. That's
I
pretty
think we
funny.
were in Pittsburgh, maybe. I'm trying to remember,
Were
but it
we?
was one of those sort of like, oh hey, like this just happened, and not that anyone thought
It
Theo was
wasn't.
about
Yeah.
to leave, but it was we sort of knew he had this 10-year shelf life, and that would have been a question as they advanced through each postseason round. And so just to
Yeah.
get ahead of it. And yeah, I'm with you too. Like, I've never gotten any sense from Jed that he's getting antsy or feels underappreciated and wants to move elsewhere, that he is so rooted in Chicago. I think another 5-year deal would be, very welcome on his part.
All right, we got a Cade Horton question next. How do you think Cade Horton will be managed in the second half with Tyone out and Horton perhaps needing to be monitored? Will that make a second starter a necessity at the deadline? Kind of two questions there. So I think we've kind of talked about two starters as kind of the ideal situation for them to add. We talked about Assad possibly coming back, but that's I with Tyone and waiting for Tyone, waiting for Assad. Yeah, they're aiming for two starters to be added in general. Uh, how will he be managed in the second half? So I just looked this up. It's 88 and a third is his career high, pro high. Sorry, I should say. Uh, in that over a full season, including the minors this year, he's at 85 and 2/3. Um, so he's approaching what he already, his previous career mark in pro ball. But they're not just looking at innings. They've told us this over and over again. They will not just be monitoring things based on innings. So that's a very rudimentary way. That's really my only way of like looking at things because I don't have the data that they're using. But they all have these wearables. We see it when we go to the park. There's even more stuff that they're monitoring, and that's how they work out, their bullpen sessions, how like all the data, all the stuff that we've talked about over the years when they're on the mound and in the bullpen, as far as how their pitches are moving, where their arm slot is, how their body's moving, the velocity, how they're rebounding from a start and bullpen start, all that stuff, like stuff that we probably don't even know about, stuff that's happening in the gym that we don't really fully know about. Uh, there are all these things that are being monitored, and that's giving them, uh, that's helping them make their decisions. And even with all that, it's a really imperfect science, and they really don't have 100% certainty. I don't even know where that level of certainty is. They don't feel great about. They don't know. It's probably better than it was 10 years ago, uh, but it's nowhere close to what they want to be. That there are certain aspects of baseball where they feel they've made so much progress. They feel really good about how they can see things. This is not one of those things where they feel like they've made that they've gotten to a point. It's like, oh, we almost have this figured out. They're constantly, it's constant trial and error from what we understand.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up here a quote that Craig Counsell gave when I asked about kind of Matthew Boyd's workload and how, he can kind of hold up in the second half. And to quote Counsell, "We don't know what causes pitchers to get injured. Otherwise, we'd be better as an industry." And so I think that's really pertinent here too, of like, they're all just guessing.
Yeah.
And like, there are probably things that intuitively make more sense than others. And there are ways to maybe uh, open yourself up to more second guessing or not. But ultimately, I think Cade Horton will be managed, how he will be managed will be dictated by how he pitches. And I feel like he's had a nice first half. I think he's been impressive in a lot of ways. I don't think he's been like super dominant. It's not like, the Miz arriving in Milwaukee. And maybe that's an unfair comparison. He's sort of an outlier, but you've seen in this division a lot of really interesting young pitchers. And like, I think Cade Horton is competitive. He's professional. He's athletic, adaptable, like a lot of good things going for him. I don't know if we've seen like a number one ace who's just going to sort of blow you away every 5 or 6 days, but certainly a nice piece for a team. And like, if he keeps getting outs, Counsell will keep giving him the ball. I think when we get into these last 2 months, Sahadev, you talked about this last episode. You wrote it in your second half storylines preview. He's a little less patient and a little more aggressive now. Like, he has that feel for the rhythms of the season. And like, given his track record as a second half manager, you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt of which buttons to push. And Cade Horton is certainly a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and you can be aggressive, you can be creative, especially if they make trades, if they add multiple starters, Javier Assad and Tyone get healthy. Now you suddenly have all these choices, and it's like, okay, we can rest Cade Horton, we can send him down, you can option him, and like just monitor his innings, have him throw a few innings here and there, and then build him back up essentially, and then he's back in a month or 2 weeks, whatever you want to do, however you want to handle it. So you don't need to overthink it. If you add pitching, like, you have to add the pitching, which is we've been assuming for months now that they're doing that. So I do I do like what Cade Horton's done. No, is he blown people away like Mizraski? No. Is he Paul Skeens? Does he have the stuff of like, does he have triple digit stuff like Chase Burns? Like, those guys in the division, they're impressive. There's some really like blow you away, make Sports Center highlights, get gift and pitching ninja and all that stuff. I'm not sure if Cade Horton's there fully. There are some pitches that I've seen that I'm like, wow, okay. And I do think he can be really good. I don't know if he's like starting the All-Star game good, but I do think there's more in the tank, and we're seeing flashes of like, okay, I mean, a lot of like those intangible qualities. You hear his teammates, his manager talk about it, the pitching coach talks about it. He's a competitor. He's super focused. He's able to wipe away bad moments really quickly. I think all that stuff matters, and it's important, and it'll help. He has the talent as well, and I think
Yes.
it's going to help him get to a better level than he's at even right now. He's solid right now, but I think he can get to another level. I think he's scratching that at times. You see it. I'm not sure if we'll fully see it this year. Maybe we will. But yeah, I do think there's another level there, and I'm curious to see how and when he reaches it. All right, let's take another break and then wrap up with a couple more questions.
The way to buy, sell, or trade your cards is Arena Club. It is the top marketplace in the biz to get that done. And Kratz, we love the slab pack situation because rolling through a ton of cards, physically opening them, finding all kinds of commons that end up folded or in the garbage is old news. Why not get a slab pack and get a chance at a card worth thousands of dollars?
I was a common card. It's okay if you don't get me in your slab pack because you put as little as $25 for a slab pack and you could pull out something that's worth thousands of dollars. And it's a keepsake that you get to like, wait, you know what? It might be worth this much today, but I get to watch the value grow.
And right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FAL and use the code FAL. That's 20% off your first card purchase or slab pack at arenaclub.com/FAL, code FAL.
All right, Patrick, this is actually the last question of the episode. There were a couple other questions. I think we'll touch on some, like one of the other questions kind of in our next episode. So if you didn't get your question answered, there's more stuff coming. Considering the lack of hitting off the bench, would the Cubs consider rostering 3 catchers once Miguel Amaya comes back? I mean, Reese McGuire has played well. I'm not sure what his offensive numbers are, but I'm going to guess off the top of my head that they're pretty damn good. They're not great, they're not like elite, but he's been league average essentially overall. But I feel like he's come through in some big moments and hit some big home runs or gotten some big hits here and there. So you can't be disappointed with what Reese McGuire's done. But I think it's a valid question because the numbers for Vidal Brujan, for John Birdie, they're just like offensively, they're certainly not good enough. John Birdie is about 52% below league average if you're looking at weighted runs created plus. Vidal Brujan, I believe, is worse than that. I'm not even going to bother looking it up because I know he just doesn't have that many big hits or hits in general. So, what have you heard there, Patrick?
First, I'm curious, like, Minneapolis Polar Bear Club, is Dan Hayes a member of that? Like our buddy over at The Athletic? I think they would consider this. I think that's sort of like been a back burner idea. We know how obsessed they are with depth and how preoccupied they are with like what could go wrong. And Reese McGuire has been a nice fit. I think you see too, like, Carson Kelly's been great, but he did have that sort of like lull there, between whatever his Barry Bonds period and then just before the All-Star break, he was like really, really good. And I think, offensively, it kind of came and went a little bit. I mean, Miguel Amaya had a really nice reputation as an offensive prospect coming up through the minors. It seemed like he had made significant adjustments last year and real nice strides to becoming an everyday type catcher. So I definitely would think this is under consideration. It's a very good question. We'll have to see. It sounded like Amaya was probably going to need some time in the minors. I guess series now are almost like a full week in the minors. So like saying a series is it's not just like 3 games. He would need more than 3. Knowing how the Cubs operate, they probably would ease him in a bit. It's not like he would just play like 6 games in a row, particularly as a catcher. So again, this is one of those things where you kind of see how Maya does, see how Kelly and McGuire present coming out of the All-Star break, what they do at the deadline. And also, like, we can't assume all these position players are just going to stay healthy between now and the deadline. I think that'll be interesting on Friday when we get to Wrigley to see, if there are any moves or if there's any, no, we didn't mention this, but, in Minneapolis or New York, this sort of happened on that last road trip there. You just sort of never know.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's a good point. They're absolutely adding depth. They're going to be moves made. We don't know what this team will look like in 2 weeks. It's going to look a little different. And likely decently improved is the hope that for Cubs fans, I assume, and that's what they're gonna try and pull off over these next couple of weeks. All right, Patrick, we'll be back with another episode previewing some of talking about what happened with Kyle Tucker and then some other stuff going on, and then previewing this weekend against Boston. Let's wrap this one up. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.